Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next episode of Overwatch.
The two to the fight will not be denied.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Esports. I'm one of your hosts, Spencer. With me is Chris. This is like the fourth time we tried to record this video. We did this for you guys yesterday, but unfortunately, we had no audio. That's why it's a day late. I apologize for that. That's my job to check it. But the one time I don't, and all of a sudden, we have an audio issue with the video. With that being said, we are finally back on track.
With that being said, I'm looking for a new co-host. Gonna fire this guy. Don't tell him about it.
Clearly. Yeah, clearly. So again, guys, thank you for your patience for the new Overwatch video coming on Wednesday. And I know you guys might be a little bit confused because normally we do the Call of Duty stuff. And while that is the case, because there was such a large news on the Overwatch front, and we finally got some details on Overwatch 2, which again, not many people, or it's been a while since we had like learned the specifics in terms of PvP additions to Overwatch 2. We decided to make a video on it. We'll like briefly gloss over some of the other changes. I don't want to go into too much detail. There's a lot of other people who have, you know, made some great content surrounding that, whether it be the new changes to some of the heroes, for instance, like Winston, right? Giving him some long range attack abilities, whether that be the changes to Mei, for instance, and her ability to no longer freeze. If that's sort of a step in the right direction in terms of removing CC entirely out of the game, I think it's a great step for Overwatch moving forward. I think the new character models look incredible. I think the new audio design looks incredible. And I know some people were kind of memeing on that, but I do think that the audio design is actually quite important. And again, the maps look absolutely beautiful. So there's a lot to love from what we saw. And I think had that just been it, there actually would have been a lot more positivity surrounding Overwatch as a whole. I think the issue stems from obviously the biggest change that they made, which will be the focal point of this video, and that, of course, being the switch from 6v6 to 5v5.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of uproar in regards to people not liking it. And obviously that makes sense. People are pretty resistant to change. I remember when Roll Lock came in and 222 came in, I was like, what the heck? Why are we having Roll Lock? And now I'm looking back, I'm like, wow. Whenever you go back to open queue and play a little bit, you're like, oh, wow, yeah, okay. Yeah, this is a good change.
Yeah, I hit my luck. But to be fair, I was always a fan of Roll Lock for the record. And then to this day, I think Roll Lock saved Overwatch. Unnecessary change. But regardless, not what the video is. Not what the video is about. No. But I think the point you were trying to make, which I agree on, is
people are resistant to change.
Yeah, people are resistant to change. And not only that, but people are also very, very... They really enjoy being very divisive and very specific and very vocal about changes that they have no idea how are actually going to play out.
Yes.
Right? Because this is, again, a massive change where, don't get me wrong, as a podcast duo where, you know, when Chris and I do play Overwatch, he is the main tank and I am the off tank. That is what essentially all we play. Like, I'm an off tank one trick, I'm a Zarya one trick. That is by far my favorite part of the game. I understand the negatives. I understand the negatives completely. But at the same time, I'm also aware of the fact that we haven't seen the bigger picture, right? And I don't mean that like you can try to theorize about it, but even if we can sit here and try to theorize all we want about how it's going to play on the new maps or how it's going to play with the new heroes or what those changes will look like once they're actually implemented, we truly have no idea how it's actually going to play out until we actually get our hands on Overwatch 2 and see for ourselves what the new heroes are like, what the new balance changes are like, what it's like having one less tank on the map and having, you know, more resources and more damage being put into said tank. So I think I still want to preface this by saying, even though I have some opinions, both positive and negative, I'm very much on the upfront that like nobody really knows enough to truly have a well-educated opinion on this. Like it really is one of those moments where I think that we're going to have to wait and see. And I love being, you know, and arguing as much as the next person, but I do think that some people have taken it too far on either end, where it's like, guys, like this could very well be a great change or a poor change, but we very much do not know at this point in time.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, you know, as us two being tank duos who really enjoy playing the game together, and the synergies that we can form together, it's a little hard because we are a little bit biased. You know, from a purely biased and purely just me playing standpoint, I want to see 6 people in there. Just because when Overwatch 2 comes out, one of us is going to have to play healer or DPS. You know we ain't playing DPS because we both probably suck.
Well, yeah, I'm a diamond off tank, but I am very much not a diamond any other player, right? Like,
Yes.
like when I solo queue on my own account and I have to play main tank, it doesn't go very well. If I have to play DPS, it doesn't go very well. So I very much got to where I am in Overwatch because of not one, just the uniqueness of the off tank role. I think that's kind of, to be honest, what makes Overwatch special. But also the synergies that go along with that.
Yeah, exactly. And suffice to say, I think we may have to deal with a little bit of SR drop possibly some SR drop when 5-5 comes around.
Yeah.
That we call it 5v5. But we're gonna have to try and look at it objectively, and I feel like there are definitely some good points in contention for 5v5. I think the probably most obvious one is queue time. Just with less tanks per team, we're going to have a lot faster queue times for DPS. I feel like just based off that, we're going to see a little bit of resurgence and individuals come back to the game because they can get more than one game in every 30 minutes.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that is something that, like, obviously I myself don't truly know how annoying that must be, but I think it is a point that a lot of people who maybe aren't like DPS players who play every single day might overlook. Again, because I'm not a DPS player, I don't really understand it, but when I want to play Overwatch, I hop in there and I queue up and we're in a game within like a minute or two.
Yeah.
I can imagine how infuriating it would be if I wanted to play Overwatch and I had to wait 15. I know at the lower ranks it can be 10 minutes, but I've seen some queue times of players in the higher levels where you're looking at like 20, 30 minutes just to get into one game of Overwatch. Like, imagine you spend like 35 minutes into a queue and you get on and you get a hog one trick. The other guy's playing like wrecking ball or you know what I mean? Like, it's like just like a monkey hog. And then you got like Anubis or something like that, right? And it's like not one of your favorite maps because you can't pick which maps you want to play. Your tank combination doesn't work. And it's like, great, I just waited 35 minutes and I can't even play the game that I want to play. Like, I can imagine how infuriating that would be. And it is crazy that in today's day and age, for an esports title in a game as big as Overwatch, to have queue times of upward of like 30 minutes is kind of ludicrous, especially since it's only the DPS. So I do agree that for the long-term growth of the game, reducing those is a benefit. And I think that this is the other reason where like some people can make it a little bit too pigeonholed. Obviously, when you talk about like the pro players, people are saying, hey, it's essentially they're losing their jobs. One, I don't know if this is even kind of true. I know that in theory it is, but at the same time, we even saw like Adam, who's one of the co-owners of Overactive Media, who runs the Toronto Defiant, kind of tweeted out that like they would still probably have 2 tanks on because, again, if it's very map or meta dependent, you still might want a second tank on that roster who can play the solo D.va, the solo Zarya, the solo Sigma, as well as having a tank on that roster who could play the solo Monkey, the solo Reinhardt, the solo new hero, right? Like, I don't know if the days of having 2 tanks on a roster are dead. I'm sure as those tanks, it will be frustrating that your play time would be cut in half. But at the same time, I don't know if that's as big of an issue. But again, I do think from the pro perspective, the fact that this might help grow the game as a whole overall will be good for the competitive scene.
Yeah, I understand. Part of me is still a little bit like the amount of tanks in Pro League will still go down, which is unfortunate because I hate to see people lose their job simply because of a change in the game.
Yeah.
Especially like think of the opportunity cost of going pro in Overwatch. You're giving up maybe a university education. So if you have to play 10 hours a day, like maybe giving up a university education.
That's true.
You're giving up like years of starting a career, like and just to be knocked out of Pro League because there just isn't as many viable spots because it went from 2 tanks to 1. Man, I can understand that frustration. Like now you're just sitting here. I'm not pro anymore. Like what do I do? I'm 23, no college education. Like it's frustrating.
This is definitely an issue across a lot of different esports. But so I totally agree that when you look at it from that perspective, it's definitely unfortunate. But again, it's also important to reinforce that as much as that really does suck, it is kind of collateral damage. We saw DPS essentially, lose their entire careers because the game went from, regular Overwatch Widow Tracer to GOATs, right? That was a big issue. You saw a lot of players like RCK, for instance, who kind of specialize in that D.va, but who can flex to DPS and can kind of play your Sombras, can kind of play some DPS here and there. They kind of lost their jobs as well when 2-2 roll lock came into play. I think the important part to remember is that the Overwatch League, while it is like a big part of our lives, obviously we do this podcast, we cover it on a daily basis, it is such a small niche within the Overwatch community, and the game dev team really can't make major changes solely based on the Overwatch League. And if they truly believe that to make Overwatch the best game possible, the most popular game possible, that is most accessible to the most amount of people, that it needs to switch to 5v5. And again, it's easy for me to say this because I'm not an Overwatch League tank, so my job's not on the line. But I do think, objectively speaking, they should make the change for the betterment of the game. That's their job, and that's how they should try to balance and try to make these changes for Overwatch 2 moving forward. With that being said, obviously the tanks who lose their jobs absolutely have my sympathy, and I really hope they are able to bounce back. I hope that teams do carry 2 of them, and for the most part, that tank turnover isn't as large as some people think it might be. But at the same time, I do think it's the right decision for the dev team moving forward.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think Avril put out a really great tweet in terms of identifying where all the hate came from. And he said that it's more of like a survivorship bias that we're really seeing here. So we're seeing the tweets from all the people who have literally hung on to Overwatch to all the years and haven't dropped out yet. And these are the people who hung in there because they like the specific style. We're really not hearing the voice of all the people who have stopped playing Overwatch, playing something else right now, and who may come pick it up because they like 5v5 better than 6v6. So I think we are seeing quite a biased response from the community right now.
And it's a good point because, again, it's funny. So on one hand, I get it, on the other hand, I don't. Like, I truly think, and this is definitely selfishly speaking. I want to preface that, but selfishly. But I truly think that the beauty of Overwatch, what makes it special, to me has always been the synergies between the 2 tanks. Like, if I wanted to play a first-person shooter, and I know that some people think Overwatch is a first-person shooter, which it is for the most part, but if I wanted to play a first-person shooter, I'd probably play like Valorant or Call of Duty or something like that, right? Like, I just would. Because if I just want to play first-person shooter, I think that those already kind of have that marketplace. To me, specifically, what made Overwatch so special was the fact that there was these unique heroes that I could only get on Overwatch, like Zarya or d.va. There's a specific playstyle. There was these synergies between 2 tanks that I could only find by playing Overwatch. And that was what kind of made it so special to me, was that it combined those 2 things. And I do worry that some of that love will be lost for Overwatch 2. Like, part of me is afraid that I will never be able to enjoy Overwatch 2 as much as I enjoy Overwatch 1, because the part that made it special to me was the synergies between the 2 tanks. And that part is now gone. With that being said, I think there's a lot of people trying to share that sentiment, but not that many people play tank. So I feel like they're just lying, because honestly, as much as that is how I feel, I'm also well aware that I am in the minority. If you go to the queue times right now, there is a reason why it takes me a minute and a half to get into a game, and it takes my DPS counterparts 13, 14, 15 plus minutes, and it's because there's a significantly higher portion of the player base who wants to play the DPS heroes than there are who want to play the tank heroes. That's just a fact. So I know it does suck, but at the same time, very clearly, the tank synergies isn't as important as a game as I thought it was. Otherwise, there'd be a lot more tanks. Another great point to bring up, and I believe this was on, I think Matt brought this up on the Plat Chat episode, and I wish he would have elaborated a little bit further, because I think it is a great point. I really have fun playing tank Overwatch because when I play with you, Chris, or I play with another friend, I know that we can dictate the tank synergies. It's my favorite part of the game, and that's why none of us have ever learned ball, because I hate the play style. There's not a lot of synergies. You either play Monkey and I'll play d.va, or Zarya if we want to run double bubble. You'll play Reinhardt and I'll play Zarya if I can play it, or d.va if we need a little more peel, or occasionally we'll do like double shield. I'm also well aware that if I go to solo queue on my main account, that almost never happens. It is incredibly frustrating. It has came to the point where I can no longer tank the role that I love, the reason I got into Overwatch, play Overwatch by myself in a tank position, because if I queue into one of those games, there's honestly, an 80% chance that person locks either A, an off tank that I want to play, or B, they just go ball or hog and they don't say a word. And so that crucial part of Overwatch, for the most part, doesn't even exist in a large portion of ranked. And I can imagine that being incredibly frustrating for your DPS players. You wait 35 minutes in the queue, now you got 2 tanks who don't synergize with each other. That's incredibly frustrating for the rest of your team, for the players, the 2 healers as well, who have to sit there and play an entire game where their tanks don't interact with each other, don't communicate with each other. And so while losing that does really suck, I also think it's a part of Overwatch that doesn't really exist. And it exists if you force it to, but otherwise, I do think that removing one of those cases and making it to the point where like a lot more solo tanks are more meta relevant, you can significantly increase the consistencies of your game moving forward, which I think will also, 1, have more people play tank role, but also 2, make the game more enjoyable. I know that was a bit of a rant, but I thought it was a great point, and I just want to elaborate a little bit further on it.
Yeah, yeah, it really sucks because you and I are really in the minority of minorities. Like, how many two people play together, also play tank, and also play Reinhardt's or mains?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If I queue the amount of people who are going to insta lock Reinhardt or Monkey, I bet honestly it'll be at least 1 in 6, 1 in 7, if not 1 in 9, 1 in 10, right? Which is crazy to think that it takes that many games to get a good, consistent game of Overwatch.
Yeah, yeah. So even though I feel like we are kind of more in the camp of 5v5 probably will be better for the community as a whole, I genuinely think for me personally, it won't be the same as Overwatch 1.
Which I get, which does suck,
sucks,
but it's also important to note that we are in the minorities and it would be super dumb for me to assume that, you know, the entire Blizzard development team is like, oh man, what are Spencer and Chris going to think about this? We should probably make a change so they're happy, right? Like,
reach out to them.
Yeah,
I've actually had some dev guys reach out to me a little bit earlier, like, yo, what? How do you want me to do this, buddy?
Yeah, like at the end of the day, if I can remove the amount of like Hog D.va games I get, you know, I'm all for it, right? I want to make the game as consistent as possible, and maybe we'll find it where like you just find people locking Hog, and now you have no other person to save you, and now your team's just screwed. That very well might be a thing, but my hope is that if there's only one tank, you can make it so more tanks are playable, and if you do that, then maybe you won't be as screwed. But we'll see. I'm definitely we'll see.
Well, I definitely know that if I'm solo queuing tank, I will never be seeing Hog or Ball ever again. We'll never need to play against another Hog or Ball. So
well, you might need to play against them. You just want to play with them. Obviously, unless you play another role, yeah.
I mean, at our elo, you know, most balls are pretty useless anyway. So if I'm playing against it, it's almost like a dubs there.
Yeah. That's somewhat true, but I mean, I still get dumped on from either. Either way, I'm not going to talk about how well, you know, hamster players do in our ranked games. I think that's not the conversation.
It's definitely not the conversation. Going off track a little there. Anyway, guys, let us know what your thoughts are. Are we sounding completely crazy off the rockers, or are we speaking straight facts?
Yeah, guys. Please let us know your thoughts. I mean, we should at the beginning of the video. Please let us know your thoughts on 5v5 down below. I think it's a really massive change, and I think that. I just really want to hear everybody's opinion because there's definitely some stuff that I didn't bring up that weren't bringing up and vice versa. So again, guys, let us know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff.
And make sure to comment down below too and let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also comment down below and let us know your thoughts about the change to 5v5. Okay, guys, with that being said, thank you for watching. And as always, enjoy.